I've titled my talk this year, Your Words Matter. And it's important for all of us as employees of Worthington Schools to remember that the words we speak about our school district, the words we speak about our school or the department that we work in, the words we speak about our kids in Worthington are what people in our community will believe. We've done communication survey after communication survey, and they all tell us the same thing. They tell us that the number one way that people say they receive information about Worthington schools is not from our website or from our award-winning social media. It's not from our new communication app, although you should download that. It's not from what they read in the newspaper, thankfully. The number one way that people receive information and learn information about Worthington schools is from talking to our employees. So your words matter. More importantly, your words matter as it relates to how we talk with our kids. I believe that a student will remember the words that you speak to them for the rest of their life. I believe that you have the power by your words to literally change the trajectory of a child's life. So it was early summer of 1962 in Linden, Ohio. Many of you know Linden, if you're from the Columbus area, as the area just east of the state fairgrounds, just east of what, at least for a little while longer, is Crew Stadium. Officially, Linden is an area in the northeast section of Columbus. It's bordered on the south, east, and west by the Conrail Railroad line. Hudson Street divides Linden between north and south. In 1962, Linden was a middle-class neighborhood, full of homes that were 1 and 2 stories, built between 900 and 1,500 square feet, built before air conditioning was a thing. A child who grew up in Linden and was born in 1945 and grew up during that era had a relatively carefree childhood, playing softball at the local parks and rec, walking most anywhere they wanted to go. When the state fair was in town, the kids from Linden, or some of the kids from Linden, would sneak into the fair by climbing the fence and spend the day fishing at the natural resources ponds. During that era, most of the dads went to work during the day and most of the moms were at home. There was no such thing as a helicopter parent. Kids left home in the morning and they returned home when it got dark. One of the boys that was at Linden McKinley High School in 1962 grew up in that exact scenario. Fishing, playing whatever sport was in season, generally trying to stay out of any serious trouble. His dad was a railroad engineer, and he used to walk the tracks next to his train with a set of brass knuckles for protection. His mom was home, but she could be distant. His parents, they would play cards in the evening or maybe have a drink on the porch. The 3 kids in the house, they were free to do mostly as they pleased. There was no talk of preparing for their future. They lived like most families did during this era. This particular boy was a C student. He could handle his schoolwork, but nobody was pushing him to achieve more, and so, like most adolescent boys, he did just enough to get by. It was early June in the summer of 1962 in a school without air conditioning, when that would change abruptly. Evelyn Cummins was a guidance counselor at Linden McKinley High School. She'd spent her whole career working with boys just like this one. He was signed up for a full set of classes for his senior year, but they were average classes and they led to no sort of discernible direction. Evelyn had watched this boy walk the halls for 3 years, and she felt like he had much more potential than he was exhibiting. She felt like that after graduation from high school, this boy needed to go to college. And if he was going to go to college, he would need to change the courses that he was signed up for his senior year. So Evelyn called the boy down to her office. He heard her voice come out of the loudspeaker while he was sitting in class, and he made the walk of shame out of the classroom. He walked down the hallway, and he wasn't sure why he was being called to the office. He was pretty sure he was in trouble for something. He just wasn't sure what. When he got to Evelyn's office, she asked him to sit down. There was a fan circulating hot air around the windowless office. There was only one chair in the office. It had papers and books stacked on it, so he had to pick those up and put them on the ground, and he sat down timidly in the chair. He still wasn't sure why he was in her office. Evelyn began quickly. She told the boy that she'd been watching him for years. She told the boy that he was much smarter than his grades would indicate and that he should be planning to go to college after graduation. She told the boy that they needed to change his courses so that that could happen. He sat there trying to concentrate, trying to process what Evelyn had said. It sounded good, like he wasn't actually in trouble for anything, but did she say college? You know, he'd never thought about college on his own, and nobody in his family had ever really mentioned college to him before. But does she think I'm college material? You know, pretty soon he had visions of fraternity row and college girls going through his head. As these visions played out, Evelyn plowed forward. She told him that he should be planning to go to college. And without his consent, she changed his courses from what he was signed up to a college prep load. And she insisted that he attend the Ohio State University after graduation. Here's the thing. Evelyn said he could. Evelyn said he should. And so he did.
So it was 1986, and I was a junior in high school, misplaced in a calculus class. Yes, I was very misplaced in this calculus class. Not only was I misplaced, I was taking calculus class with one of the most intimidating yet highly respected teachers at Pickerington High School, Mrs. Vicki Tyson. I still believe to this day, and that was 32 years ago to be exact, that I didn't choose to take that calculus class, but rather it was a class that my previous year teacher said, "Oh, Angie, you should take this. You should challenge your thinking, and you should sign up for this calculus class." I think Mrs. Tyson knew that within the first week of school. Because with a name like Angie Adrean, my first name starting with an A, my last name starting with an A, I had no other choice but to sit in the very first row right beside the teacher's desk. I grew up with that. Back in the day, we sat in alphabetical order. So my teacher knew everything I did. As a matter of fact, in math class, Mrs. Tyson found out right away that my style of note-taking was not the style that she believed in. I was an art student. I loved art class. I loved to draw, so I did it. I wasn't a math student. I drew in math class. I believed that my style of note-taking was making my thinking visible. I was listening to the teacher. I was making notes on the sides of my note paper. Sometimes I might finish a sketchbook assignment that was due the next period in art class. But most of the time I was taking notes. But Mrs. Tyson and I did not see eye to eye on that. So much to the point that she would reprimand me in front of class every day. She would walk by my desk because, remember, I got to sit right beside her seat. Take my notes from me, reprimand me in front of the class, let everybody know in the class that my style of note-taking was not what she expected in class. The year went on, and at this point we ran on a 6 weeks grading period back in 1986. And so it was that 3-day dreaded week of midterm exams. I liked school, I really did. I loved everything about it, but I wasn't much of a test taker either. So that 3 days was a dreaded 3 days for me. And I can still remember walking into calculus class. Again, if you haven't noticed, not my favorite class. It challenged me. But I walked in with my number 2 pencils, my blank sheet of white notebook paper, and my calculator, hoping to be unnoticed. As I walked into class, I sat down in the front row, right beside Mrs. Tyson's desk, and she's standing in front of the classroom. And she's got her arms crossed, and she's holding what appears to be a picture frame. And she says, right before class gets started, "Angie." I'm thinking, oh, class hasn't even started yet. I haven't doodled, I haven't done anything. And she's holding this picture frame. And she turns it over, and she says, "Angie, it's really important for me, now that it's midterm, we're halfway through the year, that you understand and our class understands that you taught me something." And I can remember sitting in my class thinking, yeah, I'm okay. I'm not just an art student, maybe I'm a math student. And I couldn't understand what she was doing. And she turns over the picture frame, and inside that picture frame were all of my doodles, my note-taking, my doodles from the first semester of class. And she said, "You helped me value the thinking process of my students." And all I can remember to this day is that I helped a teacher. You know, it was a combination of Mrs. Tyson's words and her actions, because that picture hung on the wall for the rest of the year. My guess is it's not there anymore. But it hung on the wall the rest of the year. And it wasn't just her words. It was a combination of her words and her actions that I knew I had helped a teacher, that I actually made a difference as a student. Your words matter, and I thank Mrs. Tyson for that.
So in the winter of 1989, I was a 17-year-old high school senior who, to that point in his career, had not done very well in school, nor had I built very good relationships with any of my teachers. So I decided to make a difference, make a change in my life, so I joined the United States Marine Corps. As a part of joining the Marine Corps, my recruiter asked if he could meet with some of my teachers to kind of learn a little bit more about me, get to know a little bit about my character, a little bit about my potential as a Marine. So, as I said, I had not done a real good job building relationships with my teachers, so I didn't have a lot of teachers to choose from. So, but I had played football for 4 years. I was a first-team All-City defensive end. I was our team's defensive lineman of the year. Admittedly, we were not a very good football team. But I thought if there was one person who might have something good to say about me, it would be my football position coach. So I invited my recruiter to school, and I still remember to this day, we walked down the hall together. I was very excited, getting ready to join the Marines, and I wanted my recruiter to meet this teacher. The recruiter went up to the teacher and said, "So what can you tell me about Nathan? You know, tell me a little bit about his character. What do you think about his potential as a Marine?" To this day, I still remember that teacher said, "Nathan doesn't have much talent. I really don't think he'll make it. I think you're wasting your time on him." So think about that. If I ask you for a second, just think for a second. How long would it take you to say that? Nathan doesn't have a lot of talent. I don't think he'll make it. I think you're wasting your time on him. Maybe 5 seconds. That statement took 5 seconds. I've thought about those statements for the last 30 years of my life. They've motivated me for who I am, to become what I am. I remember I made a sign that I hung in my barracks, Fort Sill, Oklahoma, Camp Pendleton, California, Okinawa, Japan. Those words are the reason that I became an educator, because my children, my students will always know that I care about them. They'll always know that I believe in them and that I have faith that they can do whatever they set their hearts to do. So I challenge all of you. Your children, your students will remember what you say to them. So make sure what you say to them builds them up.
It's October 1992. My job with Elford Construction is soon to be at an end, as well as my marriage, and I'm to be a single mother of 2. My world is upside down. I'm unsure of myself and my future. My closest support in Buffalo, New York, 350 miles away, is my family. Now it's time to find a career. Back in the day, you would fill out a paper application and mail it in, and I've done that numerous times. Had a couple interviews, but no real connection or fit. While I wait, I start to question myself and my abilities. Then a friend calls and tells me about a job with Worthington Schools. I never thought about that before, so I inquire about the position. Thought, this might be a good fit for me. So I fill out the application and schedule my interview with Terry Gresh. During my preliminary interview, I was nervous and giddy. I was so nervous, but I did think it went well. We talked about the job, I liked the work described, and thought, I think I could work for Worthington Schools. So Terry does tell me she'll get back with me in a couple days. So now it's a couple days later. I'm getting a little nervous because I haven't gotten a phone call. But eventually the phone did ring, and it was Worthington Schools, and my heart was racing. Then my throat tightened as I heard those words, "Thank you, but you are overqualified." I am in shock and I can't speak. I keep thinking that was the job for me. Somehow, deep inside, I gathered my strength and I said, "Could you give me a chance? Would you let me interview with HR anyways?" She said she would check and she would get back with me. Okay, it's a couple days later again, and I'm looking through the paper. My heart's not in it, because I really wanted that job. The phone rang, and I could barely get it because I couldn't breathe. It was Terry. I got the interview in HR. So now I arrive at 752 High Street. I am nervous and scared. What if I mess up or make a fool of myself, as I asked for this interview? But I walk in anyways. Shirley Niederlander, the receptionist, was very kind and her words were very warm. Soon after, Joe Borst greeted me, took me to his office for the interview. But now I'm concerned because there's another person sitting at the table, Shirley Vidmar, coordinator of HR. This is confusing for me because I've never had 2 people interview me before. Shirley's the first one to speak, and I immediately relax. The tone of her words and the smile on her face made me feel comfortable. We do talk about all my past jobs, my skills, my strengths, my weaknesses, and I'm feeling pretty good now. Then she looked at me and said, "Tell me about you." And if I could have scratched my head, I would have, but I never had been asked that question in an interview. So immediately, I talk about my children and my family. 30 minutes go by, and I'm thinking to myself, these are the 2 most kind, caring people I've ever met. I would be so honored to work for Worthington Schools. Then Joe asked, "Would you be interested in accepting the position?" I immediately said yes. I started my career December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day, 1992. When I walked in, I was told it would take me 18 months to fully understand this position. I learned by watching and listening Joe and Shirley be kind, caring, and compassionate when working with staff. Joe always told me, it's what you say and how you say it what really matters. Time and time again, I watched Joe and Shirley handle situations from non-renewals to hiring all the new staff to medical tragedies. Never before had anyone touched my heart and soul with their words. I wanted to continue this level of compassion. 26 years later, I strive every day to help the staff of Worthington Schools with whatever comes my way, whether it be an ippy-dippy or a licensure renewal, just to name a few. Now, I may not always be able to give you the answer that you want, but I will always treat you with respect and caring. I care about your success just like you care about the success of your students. Don't forget, we are all here today because someone took a chance on us. What we say and how people feel really matters.
So your words matter. Evelyn Cummins changed my life. Now, I never met Evelyn Cummins, but without her pulling my dad into her office in the summer of 1962, and literally changing the course of his future with her words and her actions, I don't believe I'd be standing here today. Because Evelyn believed in my dad and told him how much she believed in him. Dad did change his courses for his senior year. He did graduate from Lyndon McKinley and go on to Ohio State, where he earned a bachelor's degree. He used that bachelor's degree to become a special agent in the United States Secret Service, and he eventually moved our family to Worthington, Ohio, where everybody's parents I knew had a college degree. Because Dad went to college, I never considered not going to college. Evelyn Cummins changed my dad's life, and that changed my life, and will likely impact the lives of my kids and potentially their kids. Your words matter. Your words have power. Therefore, we must measure our words, because the right words will change somebody's life. To that end, we have to be constantly aware of the words that we both speak and that we write. As you heard from Angie and Nathan and Diane, our words have the power. They have the power to heal or hurt, clearly explain or further confuse, bridge divides or cement separation, enthrall or bore, charm or repel, move people to action or to tears. Your words matter. As we measure our words this year, it'll make all the difference in our relationship with our students. With words well chosen, we can guide. We can congratulate students on their success. We can encourage them when they come up short. I believe that the words we speak will literally change somebody's life. We've likely all experienced this, even in our own lives, both positively and negatively. In Worthington schools, our mission is to empower a community of learners who will change the world. If our students are going to accomplish this mission, they need to hear words of belief, words of encouragement, words of positive challenge from the trusted adults who they encounter in their circle. By our words, we have the power to help our students accomplish great things, things they never thought of on their own. Unfortunately, if we're not careful, we have the power to do great damage as well. This year and every year in Worthington schools, your words matter. Let's together commit to using our words to make a positive difference in the lives of every one of our kids. Have a great, great school year.